Welcome to the Durham College Student Academic Learning Services video on journal entries. In this video, we are going to talk about what journal entries are, where and when they are made, what they look like and why, and finally do an example to demonstrate a proper entry. Let's begin. Journal entries are used to record financial transactions. How do you know if a transaction has occurred? There are two good rules of thumb to follow. First, if money changed hands, then it's a transaction. Second, if someone completed some amount of work, it is also a transaction. Journal entries are made in the general journal. This might be done using pen and paper or electronically using a computer and accounting software. Either way, the basics are the same. Journal entries are made on a daily basis as transactions occur, at the end of the accounting period for adjusting entries, and also for closing entries. They are also made to correct any errors that have been discovered. The generic format of the general journal looks like this. The date column is used to record the date of the transaction. The titles and explanation column is used to record which accounts were affected by the transaction and a brief explanation of what occurred. The PR or posting reference column is used for cross-referencing information at a later step in the accounting process. The DR or debit column is used to record the value of the debit applied to the account listed in the titles and explanation column. The CR or credit column is used to record the value of the credit applied to the account listed in the titles and explanation column. It is important that journal entries follow the conventions of accounting and are formatted in a specific way, so that anyone may look at an entry and know what has occurred. Several different accountants may work with the information, and it is important that each can understand the transaction in the same way. When making journal entries, the debited accounts are always listed first in the leftmost part of the column, with their respective debit amounts in the debit column. The credited accounts are listed below the debited accounts, indented to the right, with their respective credit amounts in the credit column. Because we record debits on the left side of T-charts and credits on the right, the indent of the credited accounts helps the user see that those accounts were credited. Let's go through an example to demonstrate recording a transaction. We have the following information. On March 3rd, the Max Power Contracting Company purchased new equipment with a value of $27,000. They paid $7,000 in cash and signed a note payable for the remainder. The new equipment becomes an asset of the company. This means that the company's assets are increasing. We must use a debit to increase an asset, so we know that the debit of the transaction is to the equipment account. So far, the transaction looks like this. We know the company used cash to pay for part of the total cost. This means the company cash account must have gone down in value. Cash is an asset, and to make assets go down, we apply credits. Therefore, we know that crediting the cash account is also part of this transaction. Now the transaction looks like this. Looking at the transaction we've recorded, we can see that the total debits do not balance the total credits. They are not equal. Also, we have not recorded anything about the note payable that was mentioned. A note payable is like a loan. The company has promised to pay that amount of money in the future. A loan is a liability to the company, and in this situation, the company liability is increasing. We must use a credit to increase liability accounts, and so the note payable account is another credit in the transaction. The transaction then looks like this. The amount of the credit is simply the total cost of the equipment minus what was paid for using cash. We can see now that the transaction is balanced. The total debits are equal to the total credits. Your instructor may want to see a brief explanation of the transaction in the journal entry. This might look something like this. The entry is now complete. Leave a blank line after the entry and begin recording the next transaction. That brings us to the end of this video on journal entries. If you have any questions about the material, I encourage you to come to the SALS Center located in room 204 of the Student Services Building and make an appointment with the appropriate Learning Skills Advisor. Thanks for watching.